everybody, and welcome to the Empowering Industry Podcast. I'm your host, Charli Matthews, and I'm excited to be here. I always say that. I don't know if I can start a podcast without saying that and being excited, but even more so today because I have CG here with me. And I just have to say, a big shout out to JD here who introduced us. And I'm excited for all of you to get to know her. So, CG, jump on here and introduce yourself to the group.
All right. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And yes, thank you, JD, for introducing us. It's been an amazing journey so far, and I'm excited to see where the rest of it goes. My name is Ciji Masser. I am the Human Resource and Operations Manager for STH. We are a manufacturer's rep firm out of Frederick, Maryland. I have been with the company since 2018. And my current title is my third or fourth title with the company. I started as a project coordinator, reviewing plans and specs and following up with general contractors to get bidders. And now I oversee all of their sales support team, their estimating team, warehousing, human resources, and some office admin. So a pretty large hat that I wear, for STH.
Absolutely. And she just leveled up each time, just keep on going. But I am curious about how did you get into this industry and this space? There's so many, I could call it the pump industry, I call it the water industry, but it's just, how did you get here?
So I'll say it's by accident. I actually started in residential HVAC. I was a project coordinator for a company in Frederick, and it just wasn't a great place to be. So I was looking for a change, and STH had a project coordinator, which aligned with what I was doing. For that company, I was looking at plans and specs. I was pulling permits. I was doing all kinds of things. And I don't know, JD just really liked me, and the rest of the team did
Well,
too. So it was a natural fit, and it was a good transition too. It wasn't HVAC to plumbing is not a huge leap, although residential to commercial is a different animal. But other than that, I think it just found me, and my family's very blue collar and working people, and I think it just is a natural place for me to be.
yeah, and I mean, there's so many different avenues with project management. I mean, every discipline, I guess, would need that. And so, but you're very industry driven. Is that because of kind of where you are, kind of grow up in the industry? Like there's a lot there.
It's so funny. One of the owners at STH actually just asked me a very similar question on Friday. It was like, what drives you? Like, you're so good at what you do. What drives you to do it? And I'm like, I think it's just me, right? Like, that's just me. I just show up and I just do it. And whenever my name's associated to something, and it could be the smallest something, right? Running permits is not a big, nobody knows that I pulled that permit, right? My name's not on that anywhere, but man, I took it to heart and personal, and I just made sure, that it was what it needed to be. And I think I've been like that like my whole life. I really just genuinely want to help people. So when I was in college, it's just a business, just a BA in business, nothing spectacular. And then
Oh
you
my
get down
gosh,
to the
hold up, hold up, hold up. I'm a business major, and I was like, that stuff was hard. I don't know.
it is
That's
hard.
pretty.
It is hard. I know people like to give you a hard time about it though, right? So anyhow, so you get down to the end of it and they're like, okay, what do you want to concentrate in? And all your friends are like marketing and econ. And I'm like, just give me HR. And they're like, you're crazy. And I'm like, I just like helping people. So I think that that's truly where the drive comes from, because in every position that I've ever had, I've had the ability to help somebody to some degree.
Oh, I'm jealous now. I didn't know that that was an option to choose human resources out of business. Oh, the things I learn on these podcasts. But you know what? I see you as a leader, and basically what you're saying is, you had that mission to serve people, and you have that heart of, servant leadership, and kind of it, people need to be able to rely on you, and you've built that credibility as you've done the work. But what does leadership mean to you?
Wow, that's a tough question. For me, what I look for in a leader is somebody who's going to help me grow in what I'm doing. Um, I don't, you give me a task, I'm going to do the task. I don't really need somebody to watch over me and make sure that I'm doing the task correctly. But I need somebody that's going to be there to answer my questions and guide me along in the process. It's also nice to have a leader that can touch on things that maybe don't just impact your professional career, but they impact your personal career. Um, I always see like I wouldn't call them memes, but like the pictures of like what a leader is versus what like a manager is. And a leader is really in front, but I'm also like the last one to eat. So if my team needs something, I'm just there. It doesn't matter. They know they can get a hold of me whenever they need to get a hold of me. And I know that's kind of taboo in the business world because you don't always want to be accessible. You want to let them, figure it out on their own. But I think they just need to know that you're there. And it's okay if you like delay getting back to them because they might figure it out on their own. But just knowing that you're there as an asset is beneficial. And I look for all of those things in a leader for myself. So I try to give my people all of those things as well.
Absolutely. And, I think there is you mentioned it, kind of that line of, doing things for other people versus the delegation to other people. But you can have other people working for you, doing the work. And when they come to you, and instead of just taking it, okay, I'll just take it on myself, to ask another question or to point them in the right direction so they don't feel alone. It's so important that they know that their leadership has their back. I completely agree with you. There is that element of growth though for leadership and how difficult it is to pull back when you are used to getting things done. Any tips for our leaders out there on that?
That has probably been my biggest struggle and something that I still battle with it. And JD's a great coach. He constantly challenges me on that. Like, could you have given that to somebody else? Do you really need to lean in there? And I'm very process driven. So for me, I like to touch it first, make sure the process is solid before I hand it off to somebody. Um, on the tip side of things, I really just it's 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 you, right? And you've got to be okay with letting it go. And it's kind of like I think about it with kids, right? Like you've taught them everything that you could possibly teach them in that moment. They've watched you do everything that you've done. You just have to trust that they're going to do it correctly. And it truly comes like trust is the key factor. You've got to figure out how to trust your team. And if you don't trust your team and you have the ability to impact change in that, then impact the change so you can trust your team or change your team so you can build trust. Because without trust, you can't let go. And I truly have a solid team of individuals that are doing the day-to-day stuff that I get to support and lead. And without them, I couldn't do the things that I need to do for the company either.
Yeah, it's so good. And it is a growth. It's not something that we can just turn off overnight either. We're growing alongside of our employees and different people in industry that we support and mentor. I love a mentor ship, group where both people are helping each other at the same time. It's the best, and I've had so many great ones. And so, we were talking about JD because he did kind of introduce us and tell, say, okay, let's get together. And one of the things I loved was getting to learn a little bit more about kind of your goals and where you're headed. And you are part of several different leadership teams, and you chair some boards and different things like that. Tell us like how important it is to be parts of different associations and groups, and kind of what that looks like for you right now.
Yeah. Um, so some days it's like crazy and I feel like I should probably pull my hair out, but most days it's really just it's so educational and it's so inspiring and I learn so much and it makes me think about things in a different point of view or even like I don't even have to be in the group setting if I'm working on something, a conversation that may or may not have happened in one of those meetings might influence how I do the next thing. So for me, it's really like a continuing education. And I'm always looking to like put my hands in something else. So I'm looking to maybe join a local HR group where I'm at so I can network in that area. I have a lot of networking in the operations side of what I do, but not in the HR side. And I just think it's beneficial to have resources, right? I was telling you about the council group that I'm a member of, and so I work with rep council or reps like STH all over the country, and it's just so great to hear that we are not the only ones struggling with the current business issue that we're struggling with, right? There are so many others out there that are walking the exact same steps that we are, and to hear how they're handling them, or just to be able to bounce things back and forth off of each other is so beneficial, especially when you get to a level of leadership that I have reached in my career at this point.
Yeah, and I talk about the Fluid Sealing Association so much because I feel like that's where I grew up and really got that knowledge of like, oh, these two competitors, there's some things that they can share, and that competitor probably knows your problem, the exactly, what it is, and so they know you best because they are doing the same work that you're doing. Doesn't mean you have to, give away trade secrets or anything like that. But tell us a little bit more about STH and kind of what area do y'all work in?
So we work in commercial plumbing and municipal and industrial wastewater and fresh and water treatment. So we rep a plethora of firms. We are unique from some others. We don't do an install, so we sell on the front end to the contractor. Contractor does the install. We support them through the process. Whatever they need, we're there for them as a partner. We start up the equipment and then we service the equipment. So we don't do the in between. We let the contractor handle that work, um, and we estimate and we engineer. And I think that's really what is unique about us and sets us apart. We really drive our business on the customer service side of things. Like that's really the pillar of our mission and vision, and our core purpose and everything is really the service that we provide to the customer, and it's what sets us apart from the next guy. Um, we have a great we have 7 estimators on staff right now that can estimate almost anything that you send in, and if not, we've got 3 engineering reps that can support those guys if they need help really digging in and tearing a project apart to make sure that we're selling the contractor the best thing for the job.
Yeah, and it just makes me think how important those relationships with the contractor must be, and kind of that whole networking and getting to know people and kind of servicing the customers. You got to understand people. So I
Yeah.
think that just another reason why you're a great leader, a great person to have on that team. And so I think that there's so much that we can take from being able to be in our industry for one. The water space is so important, and we have to be able to see where the future is going and what is needed. So, kind of having that trust between people when we're engineering work, and kind of looking at what does this need to look like. It does all come down to communication. Um, so as kind of this business person coming into this very engineering world, how do you feel like you get that knowledge to be able to communicate in that world?
A lot of it is just exposure, right? Just being in the same room as somebody listening to some conversation is really how I get it. And it's it's easy to be excluded from conversations, but if you can include yourself, shop talk or toolbox talk, a lot of times is what it's called. That's really where you learn what you need to know from a technical perspective. When I was doing residential HVAC, I had the opportunity to work with their startup team really closely for a while. And I was working with technicians, and every day they would come into my office and we just chatter back and forth about how the previous day went or an issue they encountered or things like that. And I learned so much about HVAC just from having that exposure in the space. I don't get the same exposure with what I'm doing now. Now I get a different perspective. Right now, I get the front end perspective with the engineering and the estimating, and having the knowledge that I have on the service side, even though it's in a different kind of trade, if you will. I can piece it all together and I can really make a fluid connection, from start to finish on how something operates.
I love it, and I also love how just we're talking strategy here, but the even the terminology, I can hear the flow and the water influence, the pump industry's influence into conversation, which I think is just little things I pick up on along the way. So I can't let you go. Is there anything else that you want our listeners to know before we jump into a little rapid fire?
I just think if you can find a group like this one or even this group in itself, it will give you an opportunity to see things differently. Um, and it's the first step in really like changing yourself too in your position with where you're at if you haven't already made those steps or started to take those steps. I was already pretty well into that journey when I found you in your group or was introduced to you in your group, but um being able to interact on those things that I've been learning myself for the last 2 years has really helped me kind of slow down and just take things a little differently probably than I would have a couple months back.
I love that. And, that's what it's about when you get common people together, with just sharing that experience. It makes all the difference. So, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you, fireball that you are in the industry. And, okay. So let's let other people get to know you a little bit better. What is your favorite book?
Oh, that is a good one. I've read so many. Actually, I'm gonna say Rich Dad Poor Dad. It was really what kind of shot me on this personal journey that I've been on, and it really parallels with where I'm at professionally. So I would recommend that book to anybody that asked
Awesome.
me.
Okay. Okay. What about music? Would you jam out or what?
It really depends on the day, actually, but I find myself settling somewhere between reggae and Christian pop is where I find myself settling most days.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Okay, what about the best advice you've ever received?
Perception is everything, right? If you can make it look good on the outside, people will perceive what you show them. So perception is everything.
Yeah, being an entrepreneur and this kicking off my company, I had to look better and present myself much bigger than I was. It's definitely completely different today than what it started out to be, but I love that. Okay, so let's shift just a tad bit. If you could give a female coming into the industry some advice, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that it's not easy, but it's worth it. And you just got to stick to your guns, be firm in what you know, and actually, good advice that you gave me bring the facts to the table because it'll be what sways them in the end.
I love it. I love it. That data, bring that data. And I love this saying. It makes me think of Crystal Zaman. She says, "Hey, it's not bragging if it's the truth." So bring the facts. And I loved Grumpus is where I met JD last, or I saw him last at their celebration. And I know y'all do a lot of work with them, but it's wonderful to see the leadership that's happening on empowering bumps and equipment and how it is also influencing empowering women in industry and that community that's growing and vice versa. So you're definitely one of my favorite leaders in the industry. Can't wait to see what you do next. And thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
If people want to find you, how should they contact you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. I am there and able to message. They can also email me at work. It's pretty easy. Just my initials, CMM at sthinc.com, and I'd be happy to have a conversation about anything.
Awesome, awesome. Y'all share this episode. There's so much good stuff in here. And also go to the archives. It's summer. Spend some time there. Get to know a lot of people in industry. And then hopefully we'll get to meet up in person in October. We're going to be at WEFTech, the Water Wastewater Conference there. The next day is the Empowering Women in Industry event and gala, conference and gala, fashion show, all the fun stuff. And so look forward to hopefully getting to see all of you and your teammates there. And then I guess for the rest of y'all, if y'all are there, let us know. But until next time, be empowering.